In this episode, we focus on a concept that sounds simple but is responsible for a huge amount of success or failure in real organizations. Someone must truly own each investment. New learners sometimes assume that when an organization approves funding, responsibility naturally spreads across the team that will do the work, and things will somehow stay on track. In practice, shared responsibility often turns into unclear responsibility. And unclear responsibility is where decisions stall, risks grow, and benefits quietly disappear. Ownership and accountability are the governance mechanisms that prevent that drift because they make it clear who is responsible for outcomes, who has authority to make trade-offs, and who must answer when performance is off target. The goal is not to create a blame culture or to single out a person as a scapegoat when something goes wrong. The goal is to ensure that every investment has a visible leader who can guide decisions end to end and keep the investment tied to enterprise outcomes long after the excitement of approval fades. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Ownership means a specific person is responsible for the investment's purpose and results, not just its activities. That owner is accountable for ensuring the investment stays aligned to the intended business outcomes, that decisions are made when choices appear, and that performance is evaluated honestly. Accountability means that the organization expects the owner to explain what is happening and to take action when the investment is not delivering as planned. A beginner-friendly way to tell the difference is to notice that many people can be responsible for tasks, but only one person can be accountable for the result. If everyone is accountable, then nobody is accountable because there is no clear point of decision. Governance relies on the idea that decision-making has a home, and that home is often the investment owner. When the owner is clear, other roles and teams can coordinate around that clarity rather than competing for control or waiting for someone else to act. The responsible leader for an investment is not necessarily the person with the deepest technical knowledge, and that is an important shift for beginners. In governance, leadership is about aligning resources, managing trade-offs, and ensuring benefits are realized, which requires influence across both business and technology stakeholders. A responsible leader must be able to translate enterprise goals into investment priorities and translate investment performance into language that decision-makers understand. They must also have enough authority to resolve conflicts, such as when one group wants a fast rollout while another group needs more time to manage risk. If the owner lacks authority, accountability becomes unfair because they cannot steer the investment in the direction governance expects. A well-designed governance model assigns ownership to someone positioned to influence both delivery and adoption, because adoption is where value is realized. Ownership also needs to cover the full economic life cycle, not just the delivery phase, because value does not end at launch. Many organizations mistakenly assign a project leader for delivery and then treat operations as a separate world with separate priorities. When that happens, the people who promise benefits are not the same people who are measured on whether benefits appear, and the investment can fall into a gap. End-to-end ownership prevents that gap by ensuring someone remains accountable from justification through operation and evaluation. This does not mean one person does every job. It means one person stays responsible for the outcome and coordinates the handoffs. A responsible leader must care about benefit realization metrics and be willing to adjust the investment when evidence shows value is not emerging. Without that continuity, the enterprise can end up funding delivery while failing to fund the operational changes needed to capture benefits. A key reason ownership matters is that investments always encounter decisions that require trade-offs, and trade-offs demand a recognized decision-maker. Trade-offs might involve scope, cost, timeline, quality, risk exposure, or user experience, and choosing among these is not purely technical. For example, reducing scope might protect the timeline but might reduce the benefit, while extending the timeline might preserve benefit but increase cost and delay value. If no owner is empowered to choose, teams can become stuck in endless discussion, or they may make local decisions that optimize for their own goals instead of enterprise outcomes. Governance expects that trade-offs are resolved in a way that reflects enterprise priorities, and an accountable owner is the person who ensures that happens. This also makes reporting more meaningful, because when leaders ask why performance changed, there is someone who can answer with context and who can describe the decision path that led to the current situation. Ownership must also be paired with clear success measures, because accountability without measurement becomes personal opinion. A responsible leader should be tied to outcome measures that represent the value the enterprise expected, such as reduced incident frequency, faster customer onboarding, improved reliability, or reduced processing errors. Those measures should have baselines and targets, and the owner should understand how they will be collected and how often they will be reviewed. This makes accountability fair, because it is tied to observable results rather than to impressions or politics. It also makes accountability practical, because the owner can act on leading indicators before the final outcomes appear. When measurement is clear, the owner can spot early warning signs, such as weak adoption or rising operational incidents, and can intervene before the investment's value story collapses. Governance is not about punishing failure. It is about detecting drift early and responding before drift becomes disaster. Another concept beginners should understand is that ownership and accountability must be visible across stakeholders, not hidden inside IT. Many IT-enabled investments change business processes, customer experiences, or compliance responsibilities, which means the business must participate in realizing value. If ownership sits only with IT, business stakeholders might treat the investment as a technology project and fail to change their behaviors, then later blame IT when benefits do not appear. If ownership sits only with the business, technology risks and complexity might be underestimated, creating unrealistic expectations and poor decisions. Governance often works best when an owner is clearly identified and supported by a structured group of stakeholders, but the accountable owner is still one person. That person ensures alignment across business and technology, and they make sure that the investment does not become nobody's problem when difficult decisions arise. This is how governance turns cross-functional work from chaos into coordinated action. It is also important to recognize that ownership includes responsibility for communication, because unclear communication is a common cause of surprises. A responsible leader must provide reporting that is honest and consistent, including good news and bad news, because governance decisions depend on reality. If reporting is optimistic to avoid discomfort, leaders may continue funding an underperforming investment too long, increasing waste and frustration. If reporting is overly negative without context, leaders might cancel work that could have produced value with a small adjustment. Good ownership means communicating progress, risks, and changes in a way that helps decision-makers respond. It also means communicating to the teams doing the work so they understand why priorities exist and why trade-offs were made. When communication is part of ownership, accountability becomes a feedback loop rather than a punishment mechanism. A practical challenge is that organizations sometimes assign ownership in name only, such as by listing an executive sponsor who is rarely involved. This creates the illusion of governance while leaving real decisions to whoever happens to have time and influence. A true responsible leader is engaged enough to make timely decisions, to remove obstacles, and to maintain alignment to enterprise outcomes. That engagement does not require daily involvement in technical details, but it does require periodic attention at key points, such as approval, major scope changes, milestone reviews, benefits checks, and renewal decisions. Another pitfall is assigning ownership to someone without giving them resources or authority, then expecting them to deliver results anyway. That setup produces frustration and encourages quiet workarounds, which undermines governance credibility. Effective governance matches accountability with authority and support, because that is what makes ownership real. To make this concrete, imagine an investment intended to reduce customer service handling time by improving knowledge management and case routing. The deliverables might include new workflows and improved data structures, but the benefit depends on agents using the new approach consistently and on managers reinforcing the new process. If ownership is unclear, IT might deliver the technical changes while operations never changes habits, and the handling time stays flat. With a responsible leader, someone tracks adoption, monitors handling time, listens to feedback, and makes decisions about improvements that remove friction. If performance does not improve, the owner can explain whether the issue is training, process design, data quality, or something else, and they can coordinate fixes. That is accountability in action, not blame, but continuous steering toward the outcomes that justified the investment. The enterprise gains value because someone is watching the right measures and has the mandate to act. As we conclude, assigning ownership and accountability so every investment has a responsible leader is a core governance discipline because it prevents drift, forces clear decision-making, and keeps benefits tied to real outcomes across the full life cycle. Ownership means one person is responsible for the investment's purpose and results, while accountability means the organization expects that person to explain performance and take action when needed. Effective ownership requires authority, clear success measures, honest communication, and engagement at key decision points, not just a name on a document. When organizations do this well, investments stop being isolated efforts that succeed or fail quietly and instead become managed commitments that the enterprise can steer based on evidence. If you remember one idea from this episode, let it be that value needs a visible owner, because without one, even well-funded and well-built work can fade into the background without ever delivering what it promised.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.